So I have been teaching for 16 years, and before that I was a community and parent organizer working in low-income communities in New York, Dallas, Baltimore, and last in Philly to help folks build power and make changes at the local, statewide, and national level. So when I made the transition to teaching, I came with a commitment to social justice. I came with a very clear understanding of what was wrong in the school district. And so my last organizing job was actually here in Philadelphia, building parent groups across the city. And it was interesting getting to know the problems that local schools faced from a parent organizer perspective and a parent perspective, and to then switch and become a teacher and see those very same issues, but from the inside. And so that perspective, it drives my teaching, it drives my activism, it drives my commitment to making our union a more activist union. It undergirds my entire worldview. I came to teaching with a commitment to social justice. I came to be a teacher because I wanted to teach the whole child. And when I first started teaching, it was at the beginning of No Child Left Behind, and there was still space in the classroom to do things like classroom meetings and to really do things like service learning projects and really help kids figure out how the world works and how they're going to insert themselves into the world. And it's those moments that I love the most. I teach math. I've learned to love math. I teach science. I've learned to love science. But it's really the whole child, especially at the middle school level, that makes me love teaching. I wanted to teach middle school because I nearly lost my mind in middle school. Honestly, I was saved by some very meaningful relationships with maybe one or two teachers. The rest of my 11-year-old to 14-year-old life is a big blur. Those teachers really made a difference in my life. And I know a lot of people are like, why on earth would anyone consciously make a choice to teach middle school? It's all I want to do. I am a middle school teacher. I want to help kids through that awful thing called adolescence. It really feels like it's like giving birth, that 11 to 14-year-old range. And it's what I'm committed to doing. Organizing is in my blood. My first career out of college was as an organizer on the streets of New York, Flatbush, Brooklyn. It is that passion that is about taking control of things that don't work and finding solutions and fixing them and making them functional and helping myself and people around me build the power they need to affect change, however big that change is. And that's what ultimately brought me to the caucus. When I first made the transition to teaching, I really first had to figure out how to teach. It took me 5 years to even take my face out of the classroom. And when I did decide to bring my activism into my teaching, I had folks in the teacher action group, TAG, who had been trying to get me involved for years. And it was through my activism with TAG that we began to think that we needed to build a caucus. So we had been meeting with the PFT leadership on a regular basis, bringing proposals for grassroots campaigns that we could be doing to get the resources our schools need to really breathe life back into the union membership. And while the PFT leadership was receptive to meeting, it felt like every proposal that we brought to the table was met with a huge bureaucratic wet blanket that was just unfurled on all of our enthusiasm. And so we felt disengaged, we felt disempowered, and we felt depressed, honestly. We were coming with energy and we wanted to make a difference. We're 11,000 members, at that point 20,000 members, the biggest union in the city. And we knew that if we just pointed all of our energy, all of our vision in the same direction, in the right direction, that we could really affect some concrete change. And when the PFT leadership was not embracing that energy is when we made a decision that we needed to really build a caucus. And so we had existing relationships with leaders in Chicago that had built the caucus. We had existing leadership with folks in LA and Seattle and New York, all over. So we knew what needed to be done. At the point at which we realized that the bureaucratic top-down culture of the union was not being phased by any of our organizing proposals is when we began to have systematic conversations with folks in Chicago about how they built the caucus from the ground up, what mechanisms need to be in place, what relationships need to be in place. And so we did research meetings, and we read books, and we talked to people, and decided that it was time to build a caucus. So that's what, I helped found the caucus. That's what brought me to the caucus. We had a weekend retreat. We brought like-minded folks from across the city, people who were on the inside of the Teacher Action Group, people who were involved in other teacher movements across the city, Teachers Lead Philly, Teachers Learning Collaborative, Need and Deed, a bunch of other teacher networks, and folks who we knew just had a broader vision for what teacher activism in Philadelphia could look like. And we had a retreat over the course of a weekend, brought in some folks from Chicago, had some conversations, and it was in that weekend that we decided to build that caucus. I see our potential. The potential of what our union could do is what's driven me through my activism over the last 10, 15 years here in Philadelphia. We really are. We're the largest union in the city. The largest union, and we are practically invisible. It is astounding how complacent we are with our invisibility as well. I think personally the skills that I bring to the leadership are organizing skills. As a trained professional organizer, I know what it takes to put something together from scratch. I know how to develop leadership, I know how to wage campaigns, I know how to build political allies, I know how to raise money, I know how to move things. In addition to the skill set of organizing that I bring, I also bring an entire set of relationships with folks across the country that are engaged in this similar type of work. I've been part of the United Caucus of Rank and File Educators, which came out of Chicago's work after they won their first election. And they began to pull like-minded folks together from across the country 4 years ago. And we eventually built ourselves into an organization. And we are growing a national movement. So one of the things I bring is that vision and those relationships that lift each other up across the country. I spent some time in Chicago this summer doing some research meetings with people who were instrumental in CORE in Chicago, which then waged the internal union campaign and took over at the CTU. And I was out to dinner with one of the main organizers of that movement, and we were at a restaurant in a neighborhood, and I had on a Teacher Action Group shirt, and it was a generic Teacher Action type shirt. And I will never forget this moment. Someone randomly walked up to us and was like, "Are you a teacher?" And they were talking to me. Of course, I wasn't from Chicago, so I was like, "I am a teacher, but I'm not from Chicago." And then the organizer who was with me was like, "Oh yeah, I'm with CTU." And that man said, "I want to give you a hug. Will you stand up? You all saved our city. You turned us around. You gave us hope in a way that we haven't had hope." That is the vision I have for the PFT. That teachers, that union members, that PFT members can bring that sense of hope to the entire city around issues that affect more than just public education. My vision for the PFT is that we become a beacon of hope in this city for what is possible. The one thing that I would love to say to every PFT member is have confidence in yourself. Have confidence in us. Have confidence in our ability to turn things around and create a brighter future. Thank you very much for all that you do for each other, for ourselves as a union, and for the children of Philadelphia.